Welcome to another episode of Prevailing Through Pain, where we have extraordinary women that tell their stories. And today we have the amazing, beautiful, talented Leah Carter. So Leah, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Leah, there are so many chapters to your story. I'll let you just kind of walk us through. I'll just say Leah is a mom, a wife, an entrepreneur, a student, and I'm gonna say a teacher because you help so many other people with with the things and the talents that God has given you. So can you just kind of walk us through your humble beginnings and let us know a little bit about the young Leah and what brought you to the Leah you are today?
Okay, thank you. When you name it all, it's like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. Mais les bon temps roulé. And I'm actually from the Lower Ninth Ward, or across the canal, which is really one of the most impoverished areas of Louisiana as a whole. I was born and raised. I am the second to the youngest of six. My mom was a single mom. She was an educator. So at an early age, she always instilled in us, education is the way how you get out of here, how you do something different, how you don't, become what you see. And what I saw was people doing drugs, people entering into crime. And so my mom really pushed education. If we wanted to go out and play, she's like, okay, you can read these books first, then you can go play. She told us stories every day. So she really just opened our eyes to life beyond what we saw. And as I continue to grow, education is what brought us to different places. So she ended up as a single mom, getting a bachelor's degree, getting a master's degree. And subsequently, we moved to a better neighborhood. So I was able to really see some of what she was saying, how education really moved us to something better. So that was something that I really kind of kept with me from an early age. And so I got my bachelor's at University of New Orleans, and I went straight from high school. I got a full scholarship to undergrad. I got my bachelor's, worked a little bit, went back for my master's, again on a scholarship. And I'll be finishing up my PhD, hopefully in about 3 weeks, and I'll graduate in May.
So let me let's go back a little bit, because you said it was through your mother's push with education,
yes,
that kept you focused with the idea of education and moving up.
Yes.
Out of the what ward?
Ninth Ward.
Out of the Ninth Ward.
Yes.
Never heard of that. Never heard of that. And your mom had six children.
3 girls and 3 boys, 6 children, and she was a single parent.
Putting herself through school.
Yes.
So in school, with it being, having so many siblings, and so what is your happiest memories of being in school as a young child?
I loved school. And it's so funny, if you ask my mom this, it was to a fault. Like, I loved school. So we lived in this older home that locked from the inside. I mean, now it would probably be illegal to have children at home in that. So my mom was a teacher. So she had gone ahead, and we were supposed to walk to school, where the home locked from the inside. So we couldn't get out. We're essentially locked in. And so my siblings were like, oh, great, let's take off our school uniforms and, we're done for the day. And I was devastated. I cried. I want to go to school. I opened a window and jumped out of the window and walked to school. And my mom still tells that story to this day. That's how important I saw it as a door for me. At school, I can learn about all these great people, these great places, things. I expanded my imagination. I just really had a passion for learning, and I wasn't going to let anything stop me from learning. I got perfect attendance every year. I just really love school.
Wow. The funny thing is, when I was in high school, because I'm much older than you, but I remember the thing was for us just to get out of school and get a job. And as far as college, you'd hear every now and again, you may hear someone that was African-American that was going to college, but they were typically going to college because of scholarships,
right?
Not because there was just some plan that the parent had saved this money to send them to college. And I would hear people say, it doesn't matter if you go to college because you're not going to be able to get a good job anyway. So you're just wasting your time and your money going to college. And for years, I really had that mentality. Well, I might as well just get a job. And so I was 30 when I went to college. Today, my story is totally different. I'm telling, focus on school. I do believe that. I believe that education is power.
Yes.
So, okay, so you jumping through windows to get to school. So what were, if any, memories that weren't your most favorable as a child coming up?
Yeah. So my mom was a single mother. My father was around, but not really. So my mom, she divorced him because it was a domestic violence situation. And so every time my mom would try to move on, my dad was not having it. So my worst memory as a child is saving my mother's life from my dad. Like I think went on a date or something. I have to get the details. But I know it was every time she tried to move on. And he broke into our house and he was like strangling my mother. She's a petite woman, like me. So her feet were off the floor. And I went in the closet and hid and called 911. My brothers and everybody else was like screaming and trying to beat him, but no one thought to go call 911. And so I did. And so my mom to this day, she was like, you saved my life because they weren't going to beat him up. He was strangling her. And I really believe because if I try to talk to I still have a relationship with my dad to this day, by the grace of God, I never hold a grudge against him. He doesn't even remember that. Knowing what I know now from a spiritual perspective, it was demonic. Because he knew that removing my mom from the situation, that would have put us on a totally different course. It's 6 of us, 4 of us have college degrees, 3 of us have beyond bachelors. And it's because of her. She wasn't there. So it's like him taking her out would have impacted several generations. Because now for my children, oh yeah, y'all going to college. My sister has 2 children in college. So it was demonic, so much so that I don't know if he purposely doesn't remember, he does remember. And it's so crazy. So after that event, he stayed away, of course, for 6 months or a year, but my mom forgave him and she allowed him to still be a part of our lives. And he's still a part of our lives to this day. And that was it. He never did any other type of violent act or anything like that. That was like the worst I had seen it. He would like fight or hit her here and there, but him trying to kill her, like it was that night. And it didn't happen anymore. So now I'm like, that was just like a spirit, like he was demon possessed. It's like, if I take this person out, all these generations are impacted. So I would say that was my worst childhood memory.
So do you feel that impacted you in relationships?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the trust factor. So from that point, whenever I would get into relationships, I would always kind of like second guess, what are your motives? What are your intentions? That piece. And also I really put a big emphasis on love. Like when someone showed me the love that I really didn't get, from my father, I would ignore all these other red flags because I'm like, oh, but he loved me. But everything else is a hot mess. His life is a mess, but he loves me. And so that definitely, I would say, is the biggest impact on my, like, I just was looking for love and I wanted love and forget everything else, My friends would all say, you date well below your standards.
It's so funny because I was saying this to someone not too long ago. My father was not an active father, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, it doesn't matter what kind of father that is. It's our father, and we want our father's love. Mm-hmm. And I did not receive that love from my father. And so I felt like that was a lot of poor choices for me in relationships because I was looking for love. I know my sister said one time that she told me, I'm just going to pick out your boyfriends because your taste sucks. And it wasn't so much about the taste. It was where you said they weren't demonstrating love, but they said they loved you. And you're like, oh, okay, it's all right that you cursed me out yesterday. It's all right that you had that other girl over my house sitting outside the driveway. You love me, girl.
Yes, it was. And I didn't even that was it. Like, that was my litmus test. Like, this man loves me. You know, I wasn't looking for a particular job or have it together or like you said, demonstrating. It was like, he said he loved me. Maybe he bought me a rose every 6 months. Not even a dozen, a single rose. I was like,
you holding on to it to the leaves.
Yeah, the leaves are not. Never mind. I may have, I don't know, paid his car note. Like, he got the rose. He loves me.
You know, and it's funny. Well, no, it's sad you said that because you said, and I'm sure you're exaggerating on that piece, but I remember one time my father said to me, like, you know, I'm thinking we're going to have this heart-to-heart talk, me and my father. And he said, women are stupid.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I'm saying, okay, where are we going with this? He said, I would buy a woman a dozen of eggs or a carton of milk or a loaf of bread. And then they would call their girlfriends and say, oh, girl, my man is so good to me. He brought me whatever that one item was. And then he said, when I'd get ready to leave, I'd say, can you spot me $20? And so she would give him that 20. Yeah, baby. And so he said, women are so stupid. And I'm thinking, okay, this is what you want to tell your daughter. And that messed me up as far as when a man would ask me for something, I would just, I'd shut down because I'm like, oh, he must think I'm stupid. And you know, and it's sad that some of those things, how they stay in our minds, you know, and affects our relationships, whether that's positive or negative.
And for me, it's like, I purposely wanted to run in the opposite direction of my father, right? So you think about the type of man that my father was. I'm never going to get anyone like that. And subconsciously, these things have impacted your life and your decisions with relationships, and you don't even realize. Because on the surface, I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want anyone like that. You know, I don't want to be treated that way. And well, I've never been a victim of domestic violence. I've never had anyone treat me that way. My first husband, who again, I was like, he loves me. He has a psychological abuse. And it took me a while to catch it because when you say abuse, my mind goes back to what I've seen my mom endure. That's abuse. So I'm like, oh no, this is not abuse. Not realizing that it's not okay for someone to speak to me like I'm trash, to yell at me, to belittle me. Like, that's not okay. That's not love. That is abuse. Right. So it took me a while to really make that connection.
Wow. So how old were you when you married your first husband?
So I was 21. So I graduated from college in May of 2006, and I was married like 6 months later. And it's interesting. So I was in undergrad at University of New Orleans. He did not attend the school. Again, going back to, I'm not looking for these credentials, right? We had a really nice state-of-the-art fitness facility. And I was always, really into fitness. He played basketball there. So he lived in the neighborhood and played basketball there. I think he was maybe in construction or something like that, right? But that didn't matter, He pursued me. Like, he saw in me what I couldn't see in myself. And that was like, I had it going on, So he pursued me. Like, he called me, he wined and dined me. He proposed to me like after a year or so. Like, I wasn't even thinking of marriage. I was thinking of continuing my education, maybe moving, I wasn't even thinking of that. I knew eventually I wanted to be a wife and a mom, but I had these other goals first. But I'm like, here is this man that, he has a job. He has a car. He's handsome, So I'm like, and he chose me. Like, he wants me. So I was like, yes, we got married, and it was instantly. People think I'm exaggerating. It was instantly. I will never forget this. We got married, and we were going on a cruise for our honeymoon. So we had to drive from New Orleans to Galveston. And this was when we used maps. So I had my map, trying to follow directions. And he said to me, how could you be so stupid? We're going the wrong way. How can somebody with a degree not read a map? I was shocked. I was like, what? Like, how can you? He was so serious and so angry because I couldn't, figure out where we were going on the map. To this day, I can't read maps. But he just went, and I was like, and that was the first of many times that he would throw my education in my, like, how could you have an education and not do this? He was constantly, and I realized the more he put me down, the better he felt. I was never insecure about the fact he didn't even have a high school education. I helped him get his GED later on. And I never had a problem with that. That was my husband. I loved him. I didn't care that those weren't priorities or important to me. But apparently to him, it was. He had to put me in my place. Don't think you're better than me with this education, but I never did.
You never did.
I didn't. But yeah, so that he continued, and it just progressively got worse. The insults, the interrogation, to where I start to believe those things.
So how long were you married?
So it's crazy. We were separated equal time we were married. So we were together and lived as husband and wife for 2.5 years. So I was so convinced that this is the person I should spend my life with. Louisiana is one of 11 states in the country that honors what's called a covenant marriage. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, some Louisiana nonsense. Basically, you cannot get divorced without a pastor signing off on it. Yes. A pastor. Yes. It is a true thing. Look it up. You enter into what's called a covenant marriage, and most of your conservative states have this law. And it basically says it doesn't matter where you go, you cannot be granted a petition for divorce unless you have a pastor, with minister credentials, sign off. And how many pastors will sign off on your divorce?
Exactly.
Not many. And so there's certain stipulations. One is physical violence, abuse. If one of them is incarcerated, there's these different things, ways you can get around that. But still, a pastor has to say that these things are true. So it took us over 2 years to get a divorce because we could not get a pastor to sign off.
So was he in agreement with the divorce?
Initially, he wasn't, but he had moved on. So I was so done with him. I left everything. I left the house. I left him. He had moved another woman into our house that was still in our name. I didn't care about any of that. So that's what got me to Texas.
Okay.
So I was with him in Louisiana. We were living together, and I was like, okay, I need to go. I need to remove myself from the state because he initially was not okay. And I feared it turning physically violent because he was getting so possessive. He would follow me. And so although he was never physically abusive or violent, I feared that it would get that way. And so it was my mother. She said the Lord told her to come get me. And she did. She drove. She lived in Duncanville. She drove from Duncanville to New Orleans and said, I'm coming to get you. Get in the car.
Okay, so that's how you wound up.
That's how I wound up here. She physically, because she knows me. I was trying to get my affairs in order. I'm like, I got to sell my house. I got to do all these things. And she was like, no.
Let it go.
Let it go. Because he's progressively getting to the point to where they have many women who wish they would have just left.
Yeah.
So I left. I left everything. And so after about 2.5 years, we finally got a pastor. When the pastor saw that I'm not coming back, I'm not there, I'm in a whole different state, he signed off. And so we got a divorce. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So life after the divorce, what's next?
It was so hard. I would not wish being single on anybody. Not for someone who feels like your purpose is to be a mom and a wife. It was really hard. It was really hard because here again, I didn't realize I was still taking some of those things from my father, from my first relationship. I didn't allow myself to properly rebuild myself up, or I should say I didn't allow God to pour back into me all the things that
from
that were taken out. Because I'm just thinking back on that time. It was awful. It was horrible because I didn't want that life. I wanted to be a wife. I wanted to be a mom. And here I am, almost 30, dating, going to clubs. I didn't want that. But I knew that, I'm like, okay, God, I've had dreams, visions about being a mom, about being a wife. I know. So I'm like, what is going on, isn't me. So I started to I got my master's, like, okay, let me work on me. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not good enough. I got my master's. I bought my own house. I set myself up. I wasn't even 30. I purchased my own house. I owned my own car. I got my master's degree. I had a really good job with the city. And so I'm fixing myself up, right? Because you read all these self-help books and they're like, you got to make yourself appealing. You got to get yourself together. So I'm like, okay, this time, I'm going to attract a good man, not a man who doesn't have his GED. So I'm doing all this stuff, for myself. I've lived in the gym, I'm fit, I'm physically together. I'm on in different chambers. I'm serving in the community. I'm in volunteer. And I'm like, God, what is it? I'm doing all these things in the natural, right, to prepare myself for me. I thought about this this morning in preparing. Oh, looking back, it was so embarrassing. I had a girlfriend and she was the same. We were out. We were trying to get chosen. Is what we would say. We going out to clubs and singles, mixers, you name it. We were there. And so we would spot a guy that was nice. And so, oh my God, this is so crazy. We would be like, okay, let's do our walk. So we had this walk. It was a mess. We had this walk we would put on and take our strut through the club and trying to get somebody to,
Y'all see me?
Yes. So I was never the one to approach, but I did everything to make myself approachable. And I just kept, and so for almost 10 years, I was single in the dating life, and I just was getting so down on myself because I'm like, what is going on? Why am I not? Where is he? And
so yeah, we're going to take a break. Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
All right. So, Leah, when we left off, you were telling me about strutting through the club, not being the aggressor, but...
Yes, we were trying to get chosen, and we did get chosen by frogs. So I was so tired of kissing frogs. I tried online dating again. It just, none of those things worked. And so I finally met this guy at the library, just very casual. And I was like, this is it. This is my man. And so I'm a very in the community person at this time. I was working for the city in community engagement. I brought him to all of our events. We were Facebook official. I put him on Facebook. I'm like, we were talking about marriage. I'm like, this is it. He was really attractive. He had things going for himself. He loved me. I was like, this is it. This is the one. And so one day we were having breakfast at IHOP before church. He attended church. He was the one. And so I had my list. Okay, God, these are the things I want. And for me, my relationship with Jesus Christ, it was one of the things that kept me together through all the things I had experienced in my life. So I'm like, I can't be with someone who doesn't share that.
Right.
And at the time, dating, finding a man who's attractive, has himself together, and was a Christian, it was just hard. You don't find all those things. You can find a Christian, a worshiper, but he's ugly. You can find all three is and I already said, I'm not sacrificing my list because I did that with the first marriage, right? And so this is it. So we're at IHOP having breakfast. He went to the restroom. I had never done this before. Check his phone. Something told me, look at his phone. And I was like, at first I'm like, no, I'm not about to check his phone. I don't do that. But I'm like, that's weird that would pop in my mind. We've been dating for about 7-8 months. I never thought to do that. He's with me all the time. Why would I? And so I just clicked Facebook Messenger. This man had been messaging every woman under like he would just go, you know how if you're on Facebook, different people will pop up. You may know that he was just like, I was stunned. Like I was totally blindsided. I couldn't believe that. I could not believe it. Like he was just messaging like all sorts of inappropriate sexual things. I was like, who is this? I could not believe that. So I was just like, it was like a rug had been pulled from under me because I was planning my future, you know, because at this point I'm like 30. I'm like, okay, I can't, you know, won't be having kids, all old. So I was totally blindsided. But that's one thing, like that is a deal breaker for me. Like so I instantly cut him off.
Good for you.
I instantly was like, no. And it was really hard. It was devastating. And I was like rock bottom because I was just like, you know what, God, I guess I'm meant to be a nun. Like, this is not what is happening. Like, this is it. You send me this perfect. I was mad at God. I was rationing with God. Like, how you send me everything I asked for, and it's this. Like, what is this? This is irreparable. You know, it couldn't be that he was, I don't know, like a con artist or something that maybe I can kind of work around. But it's like, this is like, no. So I was devastated. I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this. Like physically, I can't do this anymore. And so I was done. I was just like, I was just done. So to make a long story short, I went to a Jimmy Swaggart revival in Baton Rouge. Because you know when you broke down, you turn to the Lord. I don't know how often I turned to the Lord when I was with that man. But at my lowest point, that's one thing I can say. And I'm thankful that God is gracious to receive me, even when I'm not faithful when I'm on the mountaintop, but in the valley, I'm faithful. And so I that's what I turned to. I'm like, Lord, you have to do this because my self-esteem is broken. I'm embarrassed, you know, because people would ask about him, girl, where you know, and everybody would comment on how handsome he was. So I'm embarrassed in front of my friends, my colleagues. I was like at my lowest because I'm like, how could you do this to me? Like I have myself together. You know, I have my master's degree. I have my own house. I have my own, like I'm together and I'm still not good enough.
You know, something you said that, you know, God, I asked for this and I asked for that. Well, I've learned in life, and I don't know if you're at this point, that God does grant us what we ask him for. Mm-hmm. And so I flipped it at some point and said, Lord, what is it that you have for me? Give me the whatever it is that you have for me, because when I think, because I had that list. Oh, I had that list. And actually the house I'm in today, I met that person, someone that I knew years ago, and he was a police officer in Nevada. So we decided after 7 months, we're going to get married, and he gives up that, and he's saying, well, since your life is in Texas, so he comes to Texas, and then he's complaining about the houses being too close, and so we need more land. So by that time I was like, okay, he checked off on the list, on my list, but I don't think he was on the list that God really intended for me. And so that's what my joke about this house is. The reason that I got with him was because he helped me find my house. And then I told him, you need to go on back where you came from. I didn't put his name on the lease or anything because I was thinking inside, I'm not going to marry him. But I do thank you for encouraging me to find the house that I have. So, but I'm sorry. Because our list and God's list may not be the same sometimes, a lot of times.
Right. And you bring up a good point that even in that, look how he still blessed you, you know, even though like, oh, Lord, I'm so sorry you gave me this. And he's still out of it. So, yeah, that's what, and I thank God for that, because I was able to get to a point to where I had to love me. I had to see me for who God saw, you know, because I kept in the back of my mind subconsciously seeing me like as my dad saw me or as these men, instead of seeing me for who God, and then say, okay, God, send me the person that's going to see me the way you see me, and not all this stuff I tried to pack up, you know, not everything I tried to fix up to make myself a certain way. Let them just see me who you see me. whenever that comes. And I'm like, I'm done. So this was like October 2016. I'm done. So I went to Thanksgiving camp meeting, November, and I'm just like, everything is about the Holy Spirit. I'm slain in the Spirit. And so I posted a picture of me on Instagram, like, oh, I'm so excited about church tonight. #Jimmy Swagger camp meeting. Well, at the time, hashtags were just coming up. We could click the hashtag and see what different posts. So my husband at the time, he found the hashtag and found the post like, oh, I'm going to be at church tonight too. You should say hello. I'm like, okay, we can say hello. And so I said hello to him, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy. Hello, how are you? Have a good service.
Yes.
And I went sat down in my seat. At the beginning of every service, he would come sit and talk. And I'm like, okay, I talked to tons of people at church. Like, never in a million years, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man is nowhere on any list.
Yeah.
Has never been on a list, never even crossed my mind. So this is a white man. So in my mind, you're in my brother in the Lord box.
Yeah.
Like I had never dated outside of my race. I had never considered dating out. I'm from the lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans. My teachers weren't even white. Like I didn't start interacting daily with white people until maybe like high school. Everybody. So that never occurred to me. And so the last day of the camp meeting was Sunday. He was like, hey, let's have lunch after church. And in my mind, I'm like, no, but why would I have lunch with you? So I told my mom, I said, hey, how can I, let this guy know, because he's my brother in Christ. I don't want to be rude. I'm not gonna have lunch with him. How can I tell him no? And my mom was like, it's just lunch. Why? Go get you a meal. And I was like, okay, here we are 7 years later.
7 years later, and
3 kids. Mm-hmm.
And they're so cute.
And so
he's so sweet. Nick is so sweet.
I adore him. And it's so funny. I never called him my boyfriend. Now it's so funny. I make a joke and call him my boyfriend. So we had lunch. We clicked instantly as friends, and we had talked throughout the camp meeting. And so we would hang out. But so this is the camp meeting. I live in Cedar Hill and work for the city of Cedar Hill. Mm-hmm. He lives in Houston, Missouri. So we don't even live in Baton Rouge where the camp meeting is. So we met and went to our respective states. And I still was like, okay, that's just going to be my friend. Mm-hmm. So we talked every single day, every single night on the phone. Because I still am not putting him in that category. Because I'm like, I don't even want to deal with that whole interracial thing. No, I'm not doing that. And so I went up to visit him in Missouri. He came down here to Cedar Hill to visit me. And so I just really started to pray about it. And all this time, I'm sworn off, man, I'm done. I'm still have the thing hanging over my head with the guy here in Cedar Hill. I'm embarrassed about it. So I leave. I moved back to Louisiana. I left my position with the city of Cedar Hill and moved back to Louisiana. Yes.
Wow.
And so then 3 months later, he followed me and moved to Louisiana. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're living in Louisiana separately, of course, and we're going to church and, and then so 6 months after meeting, he proposed. We never said we were boyfriend and girlfriend.
Just church.
But we're hanging with church buddies. But we're together every day. And I'm like falling in love with him because I'm like, he's nothing on my list. Mm-hmm. When I say he moved to Louisiana, he gave up everything. He quit his job. He gave up his place. He sold all his clothes. He moved to Louisiana with $1,000 and a blue tote. That's it. That's all he had to his name. He had nothing. So I'm like, he doesn't fit anything on my list. He's white. Let's start there. He has blue toe. With blue toe, he has no job. He drove this raggedy pickup truck. Like, he didn't have nothing on my list. And I'm like, what is going on with this? But he saw me and loved me for me. Everything things that I didn't even see that were great about myself, he would mention. I'm like, oh, wow, I guess that is true. I do that. Like, he's like, Leah, you make everybody around you feel welcome. You instantly bring people joy. I never thought about myself in that way. But that's how that's one of the things I fell in love with him.
And so, you do have that spirit though, Leah.
Thank you. I'm fine.
You laugh, you smile, you do. You make other people happy. But interracial relationship. So, how? Because if you never dated anyone, we all have our first, but
Yes.
so how has life been with raising your sons and being in a interracial marriage?
So I'll start even right after we were married. It's funny you said your dad gave you this advice and you thought this was about to be some good advice. So my dad, he accepted him to a point. It was kind of like side eye, like, what is this? And so me and my dad sat down and he said, so I need to talk to you about this. So I'm thinking this is about to be some profound. And he was just like, don't you let that white man take advantage of you and take all your money. And I was like, what? Like, okay. And so all of his advice was along those lines. And so it's interesting. He accepted him and he had still has a relationship with him, but he was very skeptical at first, solely based on race. So never mind that this man adored me, treated me well, never solely based on race. There was the skepticism. My mom, the same, adored him. She just like, it's going to be hard. Look where we live. So that's what she said, it's going to be difficult. His parents, they both really accepted me. His grandmother, no, she never did. And it was hard. So we got married in his hometown in Houston, Missouri. Because for me, it's my second marriage. It's not that. I said, I don't care. We can go to the courthouse. But he's an only child. It's important for him and his family. So I tell people we eloped because me and my mom drove up to Missouri and got none of my family was there because it just wasn't, it was more important to him to have the big ceremony. We got married in his mother's church. And so we lived in Baton Rouge. People would stare at us, and I'm talking about.
Really?
And this is like 2017, so this is not 1985. In the grocery store, I'm talking about look of disgust from, Black people and white people. People would stare at us. I don't think I was ready for that. My mom tried to warn me, but I wasn't ready for how poorly we were received. That was so strange to me. And I think it's because although I had never dated outside my race, I was never raised to dislike another race. I just wasn't. I had white friends, and I don't know. I just never. And me personally, I wouldn't care if I saw an interracial couple in Walmart. I wouldn't stop and stare.
And I think too, for whatever reason, it seems like if it was a Black man and a white woman, it was more acceptable than a white man and a Black woman. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I don't understand that. People would say things. Someone said to me, why is it that they give us the Black men, they just get any little trophy. But when it comes to the white men taking our Black women, they take our best. He was like, Leah, you're our best. You're bright. You're educated. You have all this going for yourself. And why would you waste that? Why wouldn't you use that to partner with a Black man? I heard everything under the sun in Baton Rouge. It was so... I just wasn't ready for that. So it wasn't that it just weighed heavily on us, but we didn't have a lot of friends. I don't think either of us, because we lived in our little love bubble. We love each other. People should love us too. We weren't ready for that. That was really interesting. And so when we started to have our children, again, so I'm older now. I'm 34, 35. So we had children back to back. I'm like, I can't be 50 having kids. Let's get it done. So we had our kids. And we just really start to think is this the way we want to raise our kids? To where people are staring at us, people are making comments. So that's really what got us back to Texas. Okay. We just wanted a better atmosphere for them. And it was almost instantly, it was like God confirmed our decision. We saw interracial couples everywhere we go, mostly Hispanic and Black. And it just wasn't like that. We weren't looked at and stared at the way we were in Louisiana.
Which is so surprising to me.
I know.
Yeah. I applaud the fact that I'm looking at your hair because your hair is natural. And one of the things for whatever reason, and I'll say it doesn't have to be an interracial relationship. For whatever reason, hair with us seems to be a big thing that we don't express our natural hair.
It's so interesting you would bring that up because, back 10 years ago when I'm trying to get chosen in the club, I would never wear my hair like this. Never. Like my friend and I always had a sew-in. My hair was always weaved down my back straight. Because in my mind, no one wants a Black woman with curly hair, you know. And I don't know if that's true. Of course, I can't stereotype a whole race of men. And it's also interesting you say that because I told you I'm pursuing my PhD, and that is my research focus. I've always been passionate about exercise, and Black women, you know, statistically don't exercise as often as other races. And a lot of the health disparities that we face are because of we don't exercise. And a huge barrier that's often reported is hair. You know, if you have to go to work, you have to go to school, you don't want to have your hair sweaty. You don't feel comfortable wearing your natural hair to work. So if you have a weave, you can't work out because you have a weave. So you just choose not to work out. So that's actually my dissertation focus is barriers to physical activity in Black women with the emphasis on hair. It's been so enlightening and sad because you said it, and I'm fine, you know, not to get into the boring details of my research, but it's historical. Like we were just raised to show up a certain way because you're going to get judged for being a Black woman. So it's like you walk in the door, there's 2 strikes. You're a woman and you Black. So you can't be a Black woman with nappy hair. Like you can't have 3 strikes. So I think historically we were just taught, no, fix your hair because automatically you're Black and you're a woman. You got 2 strikes. You can't have 3 strikes with the hair too. So that's a part of it.
That's just what God gave us.
Yes. And it's so interesting that my white husband is who helped me to find the beauty in my hair. He loves my hair like this more than me, really, because I want to do different things anyway. But again, going back to him seeing me as God sees me, it's not always about what's outward, although he thinks I'm beautiful and loves my hair like this, but it's like, it shouldn't have that much weight. But it does.
You know, and it's funny because I remember my second husband, my hair just is naturally kinky. And my hair doesn't grow long. And I remember her saying one time, well, at least if you let your hair grow long, maybe it'll help you look better. I'm like, what? Do I cover my face with my hair? Is that because yeah. But, and when I was first started my business, I had this Asian hairstylist in California. And so I always liked having different colors in my hair. After I finally accepted, it's okay if I have different hues of color in my hair. So she would do, as we call it, colors 27, 30, and 4. You know, the brown, the blonde, and so she would do my natural hair because I would have my natural hair and she'd do the colors. But the minute I was getting ready to go interview for a new client because I'd already started my company. So I'm interviewing for new clients. Well, she made a wig for me with those same colors, except my wig was more acceptable. And I'd go, to interview with the client and they sign in the contract. And so I show up in 2 or 3 weeks to start the job. Now I have my natural hair. And the look on their face was like, you changed your hair. And I said, well, next time you see me, it'll probably be a different. But there was always the shock with, the natural hair.
Yes. What is that?
That's who I am. That's who we are.
And I applaud you for doing it. That's one of the things, like me, I look up to you in business and you like, this is who I am. And that's something that I'm working towards, to not show up in the interview with my straight hair or the business meeting or the deals, negotiating the deals. Like, this is who I am. And I don't know if you got to a point in business to where you're just like, this is who I am.
No, because initially it was like me trying to get those contracts.
Right.
So if you want me to look like this, and that makes you happy, and you're going to sign that contract. But when I show up, this is who I am. I'm coming in like this. And it's always funny because after that, it wasn't a barrier. But unfortunately, if we're trying to get through a door and if that hair is a barrier, well, sometimes I'm a sway.
Do what you have to
get through that door. And that was more important to me. Now, today I'm like, but there was other people too that I was trying to create opportunities for. And if I couldn't get those contracts, I wouldn't be able to provide them with those opportunities. But like I said today. But anyway, Leah, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. Your story is amazing. Congratulations on at the end of your doctoral degree. And I think you have some more good news as far as where you're going career-wise.
Yes. So one thing we didn't talk about a lot, so I'll mention briefly, I opened an indoor playground for children.
Yes.
So my husband and I, we have 3 kids under the age of 6. And that's one thing we was missing from our community, opportunities for toddlers to have fun and go and meet other parents. So we created that opportunity and we opened up an indoor playground called a Play Cafe.
And it's so nice.
Thank you. And so after owning and operating and managing the day-to-day processes for a year and finishing out my degree, I recently accepted a position with the city of Duncanville as an economic development administrator. So I'm really excited about that, to take what I've learned in business and life to use that to further my community, because that's really kind of like the heart of who I am. It's like, it's not just about me and striving to get things for me and my family, but how am I leaving my imprint on my community?
So the Play Cafe?
A Play Cafe.
Play Cafe. Would you tell our viewers how they can find you and what it's all about?
Sure. Our website is www.aplaycafe.com, or if you Google A Play Cafe Duncanville, we are #1 on Google. And so it's an indoor playground for ages 0 to 6. And so it's a coffee shop and cafe on one side and a playground on the other. So if you want to come meet up with a girlfriend or conduct a business meeting or work remotely, you can do that while your toddler plays on our playground.
Okay. So again, thanks for being on the show and congratulations on all your accomplishments, and keep on shining and making everybody shine that comes in your path.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that's a wrap.